I woke up at 5 a.m. not to the sound of an alarm, but to the weight of a pillow being crushed over my face and a stranger's hand pulling at my clothes. In this video, I'm sharing the most terrifying experience of my life. I grew up in a neighborhood where we had two homes, one solid concrete, and one old plywood house that I always found comfort in. Against my boyfriend's warnings and my own sinking intuition, I decided to sleep in the plywood house alone. By sunrise, I was fighting for my life. I'm telling this story not just to vent, but as a warning. From the hole in the wall I thought I could hide, to the muddy footprint left above my head. This is a reminder that your gut feeling is your most powerful weapon. If you have a survival story or a time your intuition saved you, please share it in the comments. Let's look out for each other. In the labyrinth of the settlement where I grew up, life is lived in the gaps between things. We live in a squatter's area, a place where the map is drawn by necessity and the architecture is a patchwork of survival. For my family, life is split between two structures that stand as symbols of our progress and our past. The first is the concrete house. It is our fortress. It's larger, with solid walls that muffle the shouts of the street and the rhythmic thumping of rain. It feels permanent. The second is the plywood house. It is an old relic, a fragile shell of sun-bleached timber, and thin sheets of wood that hum when the wind blows. Despite its vulnerability, I've always been drawn to it. At 17, I am small-framed and quiet, and the plywood house offered a sense of solitude that the bustling concrete house lacked. To me, it didn't feel like a shack, it felt like a sanctuary. I didn't realize how quickly a sanctuary could become a trap. It was the last night of innocence. It started like any other humid evening. The air was thick with the scent of charcoal smoke and the distant sounds of karaoke. My boyfriend, Leo, and two of our closest friends were gathered at the concrete house. We were lost in that timeless teenage space, scrolling through phones, sharing inside jokes, and losing track of the hours. By 11 p.m. the energy shifted. My mom was preparing to leave for a funeral wake nearby. In our culture, these gatherings last through the night, a communal vigil for the departed. My friends were ready to head home, and Mom offered to walk them out since she was heading in the same direction. "I think I'll go with you," I said, stretching. "I want to sleep at the plywood house tonight." Leo looked at me, his brow furrowing. He knew how much I loved the drafty, familiar comfort of the old house, but tonight he seemed uneasy. "Are you sure? It's late, and your mom won't be there." "I'll be fine," I insisted, giving him a reassuring smile. "I just want some peace and quiet. I sleep better there." Leo didn't drop it. He insisted on helping me move. He grabbed my two favorite plush pillows and a thick fleece blanket. As we walked the short distance to the plywood house, the streetlights cast long, flickering shadows. The house looked different at night, more skeletal, more porous. When we stepped inside, the familiar scent of old wood greeted us. But as Leo dropped the pillows onto the makeshift bed, he pointed to the wall. There it was, the hole. It wasn't just a crack. It was a significant breach in the plywood, a jagged opening where the wood had rotted or been kicked through over time. It was large enough for a person to slide through if they were determined. "I don't like this," Leo whispered, his eyes fixed on the dark void beyond the hole. "Anyone could just walk in." "I'll cover it," I said, though a cold prickle of apprehension began to crawl up my spine. "I'll be okay, Leo. My uncle is right next door. See, his wall is barely 3 feet from ours." Reluctantly, Leo helped me secure the room. It was a pathetic attempt at safety in hindsight. I took several spare blankets and tacked them over the hole, layering them until the darkness of the outside world was hidden behind floral fabric. For the door, which had a flimsy latch, I took a pair of sturdy shoelaces and tied the handle to a structural post. It was a knot of desperation, a 17-year-old's version of a deadbolt. "Call me," Leo said, kissing my forehead. "Stay on the phone with me." After everyone left, the silence of the plywood house felt heavier than usual. To drown out the creeping dread, I opened Mobile Legends on my phone. The familiar sounds of the game, the clashing of steel and the announcements of victory, usually calmed me. Leo was online, and we played together, his voice crackling through the speaker, a tether to the world of the living. "Can we video call?" he asked after a match. "I just want to see that you're okay." I laughed it off. though my heart was racing. I'm about to sleep. I'm turning the lights off now. I flicked the switch. The room plunged into a thick, oppressive blackness. The blankets over the hole fluttered slightly in the breeze, sounding like a low breath. Suddenly, the bad feeling hit me like a physical weight. It was an instinctual, primal scream from my gut telling me that I was being watched. I scrambled for the switch and flicked the lights back on. The yellow bulb bathed the room in a sickly glow, but it felt safer. I'll just sleep with the lights on, I thought. I laid my head down, the glow of the screen still stinging my eyes, and eventually, exhaustion won. I drifted into a shallow, restless sleep. 5 a.m. The nightmare manifests. The transition from sleep to terror was instantaneous. It was 5 a.m., that gray liminal hour when the world is neither dark nor light. I didn't wake up to a noise. I woke up to a sensation. Above my head, the plywood wall creaked as if under the weight of something heavy. Then I felt a sharp, rhythmic tugging. I froze. My heart hammered against my ribs like a trapped bird. Someone was pulling at the elastic waistband of my pajamas. My eyes snapped open. Before I could process the shadow looming over me, a heavy, suffocating weight smashed down onto my face. It was one of my own pillows. The person was trying to smother me, pinning my head down into the mattress. The world turned into a blur of panic and muffled gasps. I couldn't breathe. The fabric of the pillow was being pressed into my nose and mouth. My small build, which I had always seen as a disadvantage, became my greatest asset. I didn't try to push the weight off vertically. I twisted. I used every ounce of adrenaline to jerk my body to the side, creating a tiny pocket of air. I caught a glimpse of him, a dark silhouette, a man whose presence felt like a void in the room. I fought like an animal, clawing at the pillow, kicking my legs. I managed to wrench my face free and, with the last of my breath, I let out a scream that felt like it tore my throat. "Uncle, help me." The moment the scream left my lungs, the pressure vanished. The intruder didn't hesitate. He didn't speak. He turned and dove toward the hole in the wall. I watched, paralyzed, as he ripped through the blankets I had so carefully placed and disappeared into the morning mist. Seconds later, the sound of heavy footsteps came from outside. My uncle, alerted by the sheer terror in my voice, was at the door. He struggled with the shoelaces I had tied, eventually forcing his way in. "What happened? What's wrong?" he shouted, looking around the empty room. I was hysterical, the words catching in my throat. "A man, he was in here. He tried to kill me." At first, the look on my uncle's face was one of confusion, perhaps even skepticism. It's a common reaction, to think a teenager had a night terror or a vivid dream. But then he saw it. The light was still on, and there, on the pale plywood right above where my head had been resting, was a stark, muddy footprint. It was slanted against the wood, the mark of someone who had braced themselves against the wall to gain leverage while they pressed the pillow over my face. The reality hit the room like a physical blow. This wasn't a dream. There had been a predator in my sanctuary. The rest of the morning was a blur of tears and cold realization. My aunt and uncle walked me back to the concrete house, my legs shaking so violently I could barely stand. When my mom returned from the wake and saw me huddled on the sofa, she broke down. We looked at the footprint again later. It was the mark of a man's work boot. He had watched me. He had waited for the moment I was most vulnerable. He had entered through the very hole Leo had warned me about. I sit now in the safety of the concrete house, but the peace is gone. I keep playing back the what-ifs. What if I hadn't woken up when the elastic of my pajamas was pulled? What if I hadn't turned the lights back on? What if he had brought a knife instead of just using a pillow? The plywood house still stands, but I haven't stepped foot in it since. I learned a bitter lesson that night. Sometimes, the places we love the most are the ones that can't protect us. I am thankful for my life, for my small build that let me twist away, and for the scream that saved me. But most of all, I am thankful for the morning light, because for a few minutes under that pillow, I didn't think I would ever see it again. Thank you guys for sitting through this with me. It's still really hard for me to think about that morning, let alone talk about it, but I felt like I had to. If there is one thing I want you to take away from my story, it's this. Never prioritize comfort over your safety. If your gut tells you something is wrong, listen to it immediately. If this story resonated with you or helped you realize the importance of trusting your instincts, please hit the like button. It helps this video reach more people who might need to hear this warning. And if you want to hear more real-life stories and survival experiences, subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss anything. Before you go, I want to hear from you. Have you ever had a bad feeling that turned out to be right? Let's talk about it in the comments below. Stay safe, be aware of your surroundings, and I'll see you in the next video.